Now, one of Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow's first acts at City Council was to reverse a policy that left refugees on the streets while governments argued over funding. Well, Council voted to approve the changes in July, but the policy still hasn't been enacted. That is once again leaving some with no place to live. Matthew Bingley is live outside the mayor's office with more on this story. Hi, Matthew.
Hey, Anthony, the mayor's office tells me that even before this issue came up, that if a refugee had arrived at any shelter, if there was a space available, they would have had access to that bed. But the issue that we're talking about here is with the referral system to the intake center, which was supposed to change and had not. Following mass outrage over a new Toronto policy that left asylum seekers out in the elements, City Council voted to reverse it.
Let us open the shelter as many as possible if we can do it.
Months later, refugees calling central intake are still being referred to refugee-specific locations, contradicting Council's direction.
Obviously, this is egregious, and it's actually going against what we heard and our understanding, and from my understanding, the policy that was put in place.
Scrambling to address the issue this week, the mayor now tells Global News, I have spoken with city staff and they will now ensure refugees can access available emergency shelter space through central intake as per my motion at council. But Chow says even with the direction, shelters are filled to capacity. In a single 24-hour period this week, more than 270 requests were made to enter the shelter system, but only 4 spaces were available. Around 3,500 refugee claimants are now in Toronto's shelter system. About 1,500 of them are in non-refugee specific shelters. The numbers there are growing. In June, there were only 899 asylum seekers in the non-refugee shelter system. Even with a $97 million federal boost in July, the funding gap remains, leading some councillors to suggest another pressure campaign is needed.
You don't have a strong point of leverage if you just go out and say, hey, we're going to pick up the bill, but you should really do that. So let's kick it to the federal government. I think all of us agree refugees are a federal government responsibility.
We cut them off effectively as a bargaining chip to get that federal money. That didn't work for a full month and people were stranded outdoors. So is that an effective strategy? No. And it's also grossly inhumane.
Now, Diana Chan McNally points out that many of those seeking asylum have never experienced the cold of a Toronto winter before, which is why this issue, she says, needs to be solved now than ever before. She also points out that it would be a shame to see people left without shelter simply because of what she calls a funding dispute. I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, unfortunately, it could get worse before it gets better. Matthew, thank you for that update. Matthew Bingley at City Hall tonight.